So I'm back today at the spring seeding project. I have not seen this since we put down the seed back, it was probably early April or so. I don't even remember the exact timing, but this is the first time that I've seen it, and I'm going to show you today kind of the results so far, some of the little things that we're dealing with, which actually I'm very surprised how good it looks at this point, just because of the not so ideal conditions that we had throughout the springtime with lack of rainfall going into it. The seed sat there on the ground for quite a long time before we even got any irrigation to it whatsoever. And then we were up and down on temperatures. So as soon as we thought that we could get into a germination window, it was just a timing where it would get really cold again, nothing would happen. But today, honestly, not that bad, and I think it's going to be really fantastic by the end of fall with just a couple steps here as well. So the first thing I noticed when I walked up to the new yard is just the color difference between the old yard, which is predominantly Kentucky bluegrass, but it's some of the older stuff. And as I mentioned when I was here in the early springtime, is that it's not adapted as well to the shade that's here now. So today I am going to put an application on here of a fertilizer just to see how much we can get it to jumpstart. But as you look here, you'll see the distinct line between the old grass and the new fescue and the difference in color. It's very stark and looks really, really nice out there. Now, as I also mentioned, this is not really a one and done type of project. You don't just put the seed down in spring and think that everything's gonna be perfect by the time you get to fall and you're gonna have an amazingly perfect yard by that time frame. So don't be discouraged if you see a few issues here and there. This is not a time frame when you're just going to think everything's gonna be done all at once. I'm gonna give you a few tips as to some things that you might be seeing similar if you did a spring renovation and kind of what you can do about that going into the fall. First thing you might notice is some areas came in a lot better than others. It's fairly thick. And remember that there was a slope on all of this property. So for us to have even a fairly even coat of grass all the way across here is impressive to me. I'm not unhappy about that whatsoever. So we have a really good start with this considering the slope as well. But if you see some areas that are thicker, that's cool. Some areas that are thinner, no big deal. We can target the thin areas in the fall time with overseeding. Couple pieces of POA right there. I don't know if I can really see where its stem is. You can just pull that stuff out by hand if you can still dig it out. So this is a spot that's pretty thin, but I do still see a lot of grass that's through here that needs to mature. So it's not like it's completely bare throughout this section. And also, I do see a little seed still kind of sitting here. So some of it might have just been laying there and isn't going to grow, and some of it might have not gotten to completely ideal conditions yet either, and it's just been waiting to grow. But either way, all of this section I'm not worried about, because in the fall, when you get back to your overseeding program on a yard that's tall fescue especially, that if you have thin areas, you're going to have to do something about. It's not going to spread itself completely through all of this area. Then I'm not worried about putting some more seed down and filling this in over time. And you're also going to have this grass to hold all the seed now, so you're not just bare ground. That's going to help a lot to keep things in place as well. Hopefully you'll be able to see this, but this is some crabgrass that's coming up. Probably some foxtail mixed in too. And the Tenacity went to work on this from that starter fertilizer, and you'll see that a lot of these leaves have turned white or kind of bleached. That is exactly what Tenacity does. It just turns the plant white, it loses all of its color, then it's gonna start to die off after that, after it turns to that bleach color. Now, I don't know if all of this will die off. Some of it is a little more mature, but this is still easily able to be pulled out. So if you have something like this right now, I would definitely consider spraying it. I'm slightly late, I would like to spray it. I'll show you a couple early plants, so if you see something similar, you can kind of make a decision on when to spray. All right, so hopefully this will show pretty well on camera, but down in here you've got these plants right here that are just starting to sprout crabgrass, okay? So if you can get to them and spray them at this point before they get very big and before they start to tiller more, you're going to have a lot more success. I'd be looking at something like quinclorac for this. Drive Accelerate is the one that I have. You could mix it with some more Tenacity. If you only did one app of Tenacity, you could do a mixture of those two. Or if you're wanting more broadleaf control, I honestly don't see a lot more broadleaf in here. You could do some Speed Zone. So if you just see this stuff popping up right now and you can get ahead of it before it matures, you're going to have a lot better luck at getting rid of that. Before it gets to a stage where it's already tillered out and really tall, then you might have to come through some of those areas and hand pull for the most success. But definitely right now that's doable. I don't see a ton of major issues, so there's just a couple of targeted areas, but this is gonna start to grow, so you will want to spray this now if possible. Those products are what I would target. I have Drive, Accelerate, and also, like I said, if you've only done one application of Tenacity, you could mix those two together. Make sure you get a surfactant on it. Usually with Drive, I use methylated seed oil. That way you're going to be coating that actual plant and the weed that you want to get rid of, and you'll have better results in getting rid of it. Another thing to look for, and I'm pretty happy with the success that we had with the straw, would be if you see any major piles like this, then right now is a time frame to kind of come through and just get rid of these. So whatever is underneath, there is some grass under here, it's going to be able to breathe now and actually start to grow. For the most part, this straw looks like it's fairly evenly distributed, but if you see any spots like that, make sure to try to thin those out now so that it doesn't suffocate what's there. So remember that if you have crabgrass or foxtail or some of those problems going on, that this is an annual plant. So as we get into this fall and then into the winter kill, that stuff is going to be gone. It's going to die off. And what you need to do next year is just make sure that you get a prevention down so that any of the issues that you ran into now, crabgrass, foxtail, you're going to prevent that next year, and then you're just going to have your grass growing in, maybe a few broadleaf weeds here and there that you can target. But as I mentioned, we are on track right now to have this looking really good by the end of fall. The other thing to pay attention to now would be if you've only put one application of fertilizer down when you actually did the seeding, then right now it's probably 4 to 6 weeks later, maybe a little longer than that. It's definitely time that you can put down another application. You don't want to get into the hottest part of summer and be pushing major growth, so just make sure now, as it's still in the somewhat cooler part of the year, if you can get an application down, get some water on it, get that fertilizer working, you're going to have some good results of maturity yet for the fescue that is here, and you won't be pushing it too much into the heat, so make sure you get that down soon. I had way too much fun on that mower. That is honestly, though, not joking to you, the first time I've ever used a zero-turn mower before. And it was a lot of fun, so I can't wait to have one for the bigger property. It's gonna be a lot of fun sitting on that thing, putting down some stripes. But today was the first time that I had ever tried that. It's not too bad, but my lines aren't completely straight by any means. As you can see, not great, but for the first time, not too bad. So you can kind of see now how it looks mowed. Of course, it's gonna lay over a lot where the spots are, where the tires are, just because of how heavy that machine is. It does clean it up except for all of the straw, which is going to start to break down soon as well. So I'm pretty excited about the progress so far. I'll keep you updated. Let's go do a fertilizer test over on this section that hasn't had any fertilizer in a very long time. All right, so today I've got the slower. This is a slow release liquid. Now, if you're someone who doesn't like to apply quite as often as like a spoon feeding program, you can put something like this down, a little heavier rate, and then it's going to be slow release so that you can actually let that just kind of work over time. I'm gonna only do about 2,000 square feet just as a test. There's a little chart here on the front, and I'm gonna do about 15 ounces per thousand, which should give me 0.29 total pounds of N. So 15 ounces times 2, so I need 30 ounces in here, and then I will just go ahead and do 2 gallons of water in there. Wanted to also update you on my father-in-law's project. So if you'll remember, what we did with this one was we just tried out dormant seeding. So I want to show you the results today. It's really dry here already for this time of year. I'm starting to see kind of these lawns looking like slight dormancy is already setting in, which is not that great for early June, but let's take a look. So it's still kind of patchy in here, but you will see all of this dark green stuff. That's all brand new ryegrass. That's what we used. Basically just put down late fall, right before it got to the snowfall time, and just let it be. And in the springtime, this came up, you'll see all this new growth through here. And this is all pretty new grass still. Color looks really good with that. That's the good stuff right there with the ryegrass. So it worked out really well. Basically the same thing here in the front yard too. It was really thin and patchy under this tree, and it's filled in quite nicely for just doing that dormant seed. You can really see out through here what I was talking about with some of that wanting to go dormant already. You can see that it's kind of starting to get that wilted look to it. This is some fine fescue mixed in here. You'll see how wispy it is. And it's doing fine underneath the shade, but if you want to see the difference and why it doesn't always mix so well with something like bluegrass, which right next to it right here, you notice the difference in texture and the difference in color. Also, this section right here was really patchy, and it looks a lot better. So overall, looking pretty good and pretty successful on the dormant seed. Always love being in this backyard. It's just a beautiful area. So over time, we're going to see if my father-in-law is going to do any renovation with this. He's kind of toyed with the idea of maybe doing some renovation to get some better cultivars in there. Some of the things that are a little more on the shade tolerant side. But for right now, I have to say I'm pretty impressed with that winter dormant seed and how it turned out. At least he has a much more full yard going into this heat of the summer coming up. So we'll see how it withstands everything. And lastly, today I need to let you know that Cujo Yardware is doing a 15% off sale just for my audience on June 13th and 14th. So just you guys that watch or follow me on Instagram, it's only going to be happening June 13th and 14th for my audience. So if you've been in the market for getting some Cujo shoes, then right now will be the time that you want to grab those. Again, June 13th and 14th. You can follow the link in the description to get your 15% off just for my audience. Thanks so much to Cujo for doing this exclusive sale for the audience, and hope you guys take advantage of that. I hope you enjoyed this one today. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.